It's qualifying time for the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix, a country famous for its flair, its passion, its fire, samba fiesta. How did qualifying live up to the country's famous reputation? Cheesy intro out the way, let's talk about Formula One, ladies and gents. Just a bit of housekeeping to start off the video. As you would have noticed, no preview, no practice, no predictions this week. It's been a little bit busy. University, I'm afraid. I do apologise, I put my hands up, but sometimes these things can't be helped, and I don't like to constantly drone on about it, so we will leave that there. Spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen Quali, I know you Channel 4 boys and girls watch this a little bit later on, and likewise for other people around the globe, but spoilers, as always, ahead. Hopefully you've been warned. Hopefully we can stop messing and get into the results. So, for a second time in his Formula One career, Max Verstappen took pole position at a circuit which I think is his best. Dominated not necessarily dominated, but led for a good portion of last year's Grand Prix, but a little bit of contact with Esteban Ocon. Woohoo! A juicy moment that one was. That really changed the tempo of the race. Hamilton went on the win last year. He's third on the grid behind Sebastian Vettel. P4, Charles Leclerc won't start P4. He's got a new power unit this weekend and will take a whopping 10-place grid penalty and will start down in P14, which means everyone else behind him will move up one position. Charles Leclerc P4, behind him Valtteri Bottas P5. So far this weekend, Mercedes and Valtteri especially looking a little bit off the pace. I wonder if he'll be able to turn that around tomorrow. Alex Albon, his staple P6, but usually in P7 we're used to seeing one of the McLarens. It was Pierre Gasly with Romain Grosjean behind him, Kimi Raikkonen P9 and Kevin Magnussen P10. Outside the top 10, Lando Norris a little bit disappointed and quite a surprise to see neither of the two McLarens in the top 10. Norris will start on those fresh tyres, likewise with Daniel Ricciardo, and I'm really looking forward to see those two progressing through the field. Those two have a really nice rapport, but on track also, they're nice and respectful, so I think that's going to be really juicy going into tomorrow's race. Antonio Giovinazzi, out-qualified by Kimi Raikkonen this weekend, however, with his future now confirmed, I wonder how that's going to affect his races in the final two weekends. Nico Hülkenberg, a place where he once got pole position all those years ago in 2010, could only manage 14th in a struggling Renault car this weekend. I mean, the gaps again in qualifying, so minuscule, even more tiny, thanks to the circuit length of this track being mini, so it looks even better. Perez P15, Danny Kvyat out in Q1 and P16, and it was your usual Stroll and the two Williams out in Q1. But we'll start with the man who was a bit of a surprise who was out in Q1, Carlos Sainz. Starts P20 in tomorrow's race. No official word from McLaren yet, so I don't want to give you an exact reason why, but we can assume it was a power unit issue. So for tomorrow's Grand Prix, it wouldn't surprise me if McLaren strapped in a brand new power unit, if they can get one to the circuit. Well, I imagine they have spares at the circuit anyway, so I would be surprised if Carlos Sainz didn't start tomorrow's race from the pit lane, but McLaren might decide just to get him out there, start P20 and go for it. But I think Carlos, well, first of all, he'll be disappointed with today's session starting at the back, but if we just cast our minds back a little bit before the summer break, before Silverstone, back to Austria, Sainz started last. A similar kind of circuit is Sao Paulo to Austria, similar kind of length, and Sainz worked his way up into the points that race. That was, I think, Sainz's best race of 2019, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do tomorrow. Robert Kubica, out-qualified by George Russell again. The poor Williams boys, P18 and 19, isn't their worst qualifying of the season. It's Williams, guys. I can't really say much more, I'm afraid. We've had this issue all season long. And for Robert Kubica, who before this race, or before this weekend, had never qualified lower than 11th in Sao Paulo, all of his lovely records that he was holding in Formula One are just crumbling. And you know what? For a driver once held in such high regard, I want to say feel glad that he's leaving next year, because I don't want him to hurt his reputation more than I think 2019 has done already. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that at the end of the season. But 19th, 18th, probably the best Williams could ever hope for at a particular weekend. In front of them, P17, Lance Stroll, out in Q1, but in Stroll's defence, that Racing Point car not particularly suited to the Sao Paulo circuit. Sergio Perez only a couple of places ahead of Lance Stroll in P15, so I don't think they could have done much more. They've definitely had a big turnaround in the second half of the year, and actually looking at this grid, it reminds me very much of a first half of the year kind of grid, with the Racing Points near the lower end of the field, the McLarens not getting into Q3, the two Haases getting through to Q3. Crikey, that was brilliant. I did enjoy that one. Just a really unique session here in Sao Paulo, and it's a circuit where I think most of us would agree it's one of the more unique ones on the calendar, but it also brings us some juicy racing but interesting results. And looking at it on paper, you wouldn't always expect that. Anyway, splitting the two Racing Point cars, Danny Kvyat out in Q1 made a mistake through the middle sector, and as you can see by Pierre Gasly's result, there was pace in that car this weekend. This should be a circuit which should suit that Toro Rosso car quite nicely. Kvyat, who has been confirmed for next year, has been on a bit of a downwards trajectory over the last few Grand Prix. The last two Grand Prix, he's had incidents on the final lap and cost himself points. So he just needs a clean weekend, and so far that's not quite going to plan in Sao Paulo. But look out for him tomorrow in the race. Sergio Perez, P15, a similar story to Lance Stroll, except Perez did just get through to Q2, but I think that's more down to Kvyat's mistake. However, pretty straightforward, didn't have the pace to really challenge to get through to Q3. Nico Hülkenberg, who I said earlier, did manage to get pole position here at his first ever time of asking back in 2010, a feat he's never been able to do again, is claim a pole position. 2 races left potentially in his Formula 1 career. I would really hate to see his career end like this. Bear in mind, we don't know what's going to happen in Abu Dhabi, but 2 lacklustre performances, quali in the race, I would hate to see that. So I hope he can have a really strong race tomorrow. I think he's done well in the second half of the year, but a car like Daniel Ricciardo in 12th, a couple of places in front of him, I think they might struggle, but being on those new tyres, that different strategy might help them out. Giovinazzi split the 2 Renault cars. Again, a little bit like I said earlier on, that Alfa Romeo just seems to be lacking pace in this second half of the season. So a better performance, Raikkonen actually getting through into Q3. Giovinazzi, P13. I think if you look at it from the fact that he's splitting the 2 Renaults ahead of Kvyat, ahead of Perez, that's not a bad day at the office. Someone who was really disappointed with their effort, Lando Norris, just in front of Daniel Ricciardo. I said it earlier, that pairing on track and off track, I absolutely love it. And I can't wait to see them racing side by side into turn 1, but also later on in the race on that different strategy to the Alfa Romeo of Raikkonen, Gasly and the 2 Haas cars. I think that McLaren could do well tomorrow, and this will be one of those opportunities that Norris really gets to show his overtaking ability, his strategical analysis, something we haven't always been able to see in 2019. So Norris, a little bit disheartened, but I think we've seen in 2019 and 2018 and 17, starting P11 isn't a bad place to start whatsoever. Moving on into the top 10, Kevin Magnussen, P10, and we might as well say it as well, Romain Grosjean P8. Where has this been? Where has this come from that Haas car? They've not got both cars into Q3 since Spain, since the Spanish Grand Prix, and this is how long ago this was. At the Spanish Grand Prix, Mercedes was still on that streak of 1-2s, that record-breaking streak of 1-2s. It's incredible that this has been able to happen. The past couple of Grand Prix, the Haas car has been at the back of the race with the Williams. The Williams car have even been out racing the Haas car on several occasions in 2019. They have not got their concept right whatsoever, the designers at Haas. And we've said it several times in 2019. If they can get the temperatures just right, if they can work out how to set up that car just right, it's an absolute peach. It's an absolute speed demon. However, if you don't get it right, it's god-awful. and it's right at the back, no pace whatsoever. So although they're both through to the top 10, I'm still a little bit nervous for the race tomorrow. It only needs the temperature to drop by 1 degree. It to be slightly colder in the air, a little bit of rain spooking about, and that car's just going to hit the fan, be at the back of the field. So I think for the likes of Norris, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, they're going to really be able to take advantage for that. But also this man, Kimi Raikkonen, also, he's not scored points in the second half of the season. I know, it's crazy to believe, but that's the case. I think he's got a really good opportunity this weekend with the 2 Haas cars in and around him. The Alfa Romeo car showing a little bit more pace than it has over the last few Grand Prix. I'm optimistic for him. In front of Raikkonen, Grosjean, just spoke about him with the Haas car. He's just got to keep his nose clean. But if he can score points, he's not done that since Germany. What a result that would be for him. What a confidence booster that would be going into 2020. Pierre Gasly, P7. What a stonking lap at the end of Q3 from the French driver. His best result since his return to Toro Rosso. And I've got to take my hat off to him. He wasn't able to get these results in the Red Bull, but for tomorrow's Grand Prix, he's going to start P6. And to be up there with the likes of Albon, I think that's an awesome job. In front of Gasly is Alex Albon. A customary that he is P6 these days. Very straightforward. Didn't quite have the pace of the front runners, but comfortably better than the midfield. Valtteri Bottas, a bit of an off day. Not really too sure why. It's never been a circuit that Valtteri has really excelled at, and maybe that's come into play. But I also think that Mercedes was the 3rd best car this weekend. Hamilton was able to get P3 in front of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc, a few scruffy laps. Again, it's not a circuit he particularly excelled at. He was out-qualified by Marcus Ericsson last year, so doesn't surprise me too much. However, Vettel P2, only just behind Max Verstappen, that was a big surprise to me. And Ferrari seemed to have refound that pace. And that blip we saw in the US seems to be just a blip. But again, those rumours of potential illegality is the word, Dan, on their car during the US weekend. Yeah, that seems to have blown over just a little bit. But this man, Max Verstappen, claiming that 2nd pole position, or 3rd if you want to count Mexico, but 2nd official pole position of his career. Fair play to him. He is the man of the moment, and he is smashing it. He is smashing it in 2019. So, despite saying that, he's not my driver of the day. It was an incredible lap from Verstappen, but for me, Gasly's lap, the fact that Kvyat out in Q1, the fact that Gasly was right next to his former car that he used earlier on in 2019, for me, that was quite special. A circuit he's gone well at last year, not brilliant, to be able to pull that out when he knows he's not going to Red Bull next year, I was impressed with. Likewise, with Grosjean, the way he was able to turn around his session, I was really impressed with. And Max Verstappen, to be in front of those other cars, to put a lap together as clean as his pole position lap, I can't ignore that. Ones to watch for the race, Charles Leclerc starting P14, he's going to work his way forward. Likewise with Carlos Sainz starting P20, Norris, Ricciardo on those fresh tyres, and Danny Kvyat down in P16. That was your whistle-stop tour of qualifying. I know a little bit quicker today's video than normal, but again, things are a little bit hectic around here at the moment. If you're not aware, Formula E next weekend. Sorry, I know some of you don't want to hear that, but Formula E next weekend. So I'm trying to get everything in order. But don't worry, tomorrow, race review will be out after the Grand Prix. I'm also hoping, I say hoping, I believe, I'm going to be streaming with Sean the F1 Word after the race tomorrow, the race reaction stream. So as soon as the race ends, head over to his channel and you can hear all my initial thoughts before I do the fully fleshed out race review on Sunday night or Monday morning. That's the plan. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Who was driver of the day? Who's going to win the race tomorrow? If you're new around here and you've made it this far, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you really did enjoy, and feel free to subscribe if you would like. Also, you can like if you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one.